I didn't have my glasses on. But so good to see you. You came at the right time. I just thought you'd be right. Windsor.
We'll do that one more time. We're on page 6. Shana Tova. My name is Scott Goldberg. I'm a rabbi here at Temple Or Hadash, and I'm so excited to be bringing in this Rosh Hashana evening alongside Rabbi Lynn Goldsmith and our cantorial soloist Natalie Fields. Rabbi Laura Geller tells us this beautiful teaching that I want to share with you. Your book of life does not begin today. It began when you were born. Some of the chapters were written by other people, your parents, your siblings, and parts of the book were crafted out of experiences you had because of other people's decisions. Maybe where you lived, what school you attended. But the message of Rosh Hashana, the creation of the world, is that everything can be made new again. That much of your book is written every day by the choices that you make. The book is not written and sealed, but rather you get to edit it. You get to decide which pieces of that book you emphasize and remember, and maybe even which parts of that book you might want to leave behind. Shana Tova doesn't just mean good year. It also means a good change. So today is that day that you can change which parts of your book you'd like to. It's never too late. For this service, we'll be praying from a machzor. It's called Mishkan HaNefesh. It's the gold book that's in your hand. It's a book that's filled with so much wisdom. Often more wisdom than we can actually glean. So feel free to follow along with our service as any one of us call out a page number. Or also feel free to spend time this evening or tomorrow or throughout this High Holy Day season at your own pace, with plenty of contemporary readings on the left side of the page or other prayers if you wish. This year we're grateful to welcome Rosh Hashanah leading one another in service. So if you are honored with a reading or a blessing or a shofar blast, we invite you to sit in a chair on the bima immediately prior to your honor, so that all the sections of our service can run smoothly. This evening we'll hear traditional prayers, and we'll also hear new prayers, traditional melodies and new melodies as well, all of which are meant to help us reflect on where we've been, where we are right now, and where we hope to go in this upcoming year. So we will begin our service as we hope to begin our year. We'll begin with light. So I would like to call up Peter Springberg for a reading found on page 10.
And they told me page 5.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Creation's brightest light, the mystics say, was hidden at the dawn of time. But on this sacred night, this night of hope and joy, a glimmer of that light is here, in candles' flames, in children's eyes, in eyes aglow with wisdom's light. It shines in the faces of the ones we love, in grateful hearts, in tears of loss. It lives in the memory of goodness and in our own desire to do right, to try again, to build anew, to ask forgiveness and make peace. We enter this new year and look upon the beauty of these lights. So may the days of awe renew the light within us.
I'm also grateful to invite up Cindy Goldberg, my mother, to help us bring light into this evening.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yishanu mitzvotav tzidkanu v'chalav v'ner shel. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on this festival. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, giving us life, upholding the life within us, and bringing us to this time.
Let's take about the next 20 seconds or so to introduce yourself to someone nearby you whom you may not know.
I would just hate to tell you, because I know Thank you. Although not We're on page 12, and we'll read responsibly. To everything is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a season of the soul, a time to rejoice, a time to reflect, a time to return, a time to gather around the table with loved ones and friends, a time for song and silence, for prayer and confession to open the heart, a time to retreat to our sanctuaries within, a time to renew the life and spirit of our community.
This is the season of attentiveness, a time to notice what has unfolded and what has not, a time to regret, a time to forgive, a time to remember cherished dreams, and high ideals embraced by reality.
This is the season of hope, like mist rising at sunset, like dew descending at dawn. Our hopes beautify and nourish everything they touch. Our hopes make us partners in creation, pursuers of peace, people who aspire to a world of justice.
This is the season of awe, When our eyes behold it, you think about us. When we turn toward each other, let us give strength. When we seek the holy, may we find purpose. May we find courage. May we find love.
I'd like to call up Alana Jones. Alana is a very talented shofar blower, and she will be blowing the shofar throughout the next 2 days. We're on page 15. And together. At the new moon, at the full moon, for our feast days, sound the shofar, for that is the law of Israel, the way of God of Jacob. Hallelujah, beteka shofar. Together.
Praise God with the blast of the shofar.
Baruch atah Adonai shomea kol hatruat amo Yisrael barachamim.
Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, true voice of your people Israel.
Tikiya. Thank you. I told you she was good. We'll turn to page 16. Hineni is a particularly heartfelt plea on behalf of the service leader who believes that he or she is not up to the task of representing the congregation before God. It is written in the first person singular. The prayer itself is problematic for me because I cannot speak for you before God. I can only speak for myself. In fact, in Judaism, it's a stalwart principle that there are no intermediaries between us and God. We speak to God one-on-one. So with that in mind, I look at the Hineni prayer with two thoughts. One is a prayer that I always say in addition to the Baracha when I put on my talit. And that is a prayer asking God to use me to bring you closer to God. And the second thing is the last line of the Hineni prayer that I will attempt to chant, where it states that God hears the prayers of the people of Israel with compassion. God hears all of our prayers, not just the leader, and even when we don't even have words, God hears. So with those two thoughts in mind, I can comfortably recite Hineni. Hineni, het ani mimas, banir eshet, banifchedet, mipachad yoshem, tehilot Yisrael, ati la'amo, ulchanen lefonecha, Alamcha Yisrael, Asher Shalachuni, Ata Shomea, Tifilat Amcha Yisrael, Berachamim, Baruch Ata Adonai, Shomea, Please take a moment for silent reflection. We are on page 19, and I'm going to ask you all to please rise. And we recite together. Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in the year 5780. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness, and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our heart be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life. Page 20.
Please be seated. I'd like to call it Judy Garber for a reading, found on page 23.
The quickening of the moon calls us to return, and we gather, seeing dwellers on the edge of the earth. As the sun lowers itself into the sea, introspection rises. A sliver cracks the heart of the firmament, the vast blackness an invitation to write ourselves anew.
Baruch atah Adonai, HaMa'ariv Aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, creator of twilight and dusk. On the following page is our prayer Ahavat Olam on page 24. It's our prayer about love. So when we think about this new year, we'll think about the ones we love, we'll think about our passions in life, and we'll join in song together. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu v'shokneinu, kumenu nasiach bechukecha, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ומצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו, ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממני לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל. The Shema, found on the following page, on page 26, is the recitation of the Jewish people. The Shema is a text that we recite together every Friday night here at Temple Or Hadash during Shabbat services. It's also a prayer that's commanded upon the Jewish people to recite every morning and every evening. So not just on Shabbat. But on Rosh Hashanah, it's a particularly special prayer because we're in a different year. We're in a different time. Rosh Hashanah is filled with themes of renewal, to think about how to make the old new, and to think about how to make the new holy. So we just heard beautifully the sound of the shofar. And so with this sound, we're called to act, and we're called to repent, and we're called to think about this past year and the year to come. And we're also think about how to make the old new and the new holy. So I'd like to think about that as we go into the Shema together. On page 26, we'll rise as we are able. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. On the following page. Page 30. Adonai Elohechem Emet. I'd like to call up Willie Portilla for a reading, found on page 33.
Please read with me responsibly. To break the bonds of anger, to be generous of heart.
To break the bonds of shame, to live with self-respect.
To break the bonds of envy, to serve one another in joy.
To break the bonds of boredom, to be attentive to all God's gifts.
To break the bonds of fear, to live with courage and strength.
To defy the mouths of betrayal, to live with the fullness of peace.
To break the bonds of loneliness, to receive a hand of hope.
To break the bonds of self-centeredness, to extend the hand of help.
Released from the darkness, our people found their freedom at sea.
We pray for liberation and the dawning of the Spirit. Please be seated. On page 34, Micha Mocha, is our prayer for redemption and our prayer for freedom. turn to page 36 for Hashkivenu. One more time. Elohim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashirenu Adonai Elohim, Elohim Shalom. V'hamidenu, v'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Heal us from hatred, from sorrow and pain. Hashirenu Adonai, Elohim Shalom. Ve'amidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. On page 40, we'll turn to the Hatzi Kaddish, which is our prayer for transitioning into a different segment of the service, a more contemplative section of the service. We'll rise as we are able. I'd like to call on Adrian Zobel for a reading. Please be seated.
You can't rush your prayer to God. If it comes from the heart, it will rush out on its own. Speed through receding galaxies or silences in the soul, and God will hear. Honesty with all, but speaking to God is different. Mine the soul for your call and gems and regular earth. No pretense, and God will hear. Don't force the prayer or string words together. Pause, perhaps. Better not to pray. Silence will be a message of awe, and God will hear. Now step off into the very deep, beyond the way of prayer. We glimpse unknown magnitudes of God. No more, or we would be stunned into silence, except that love makes itself small. We could not pray at all.
Our next section of prayers, the Amidah, or the standing prayer, has been called the heart of our prayer service, because that's the time when we really connect with God. Because the High Holy Day Amidah uses most of the same prayers that we normally pray when we pray the Amidah, it may sound very familiar and lull us into thinking that this is a normal service, which it definitely is not. Therefore, we use different melodies for those familiar prayers to emphasize the uniqueness of the High Holy Day. You just heard the High Holy Day prayer for the Chatzikaj. However, we, that would be Scott and Natalie and me, think it only makes sense that you should be participants and not just passive or listeners. Therefore, I will sing the Avot in the High Holy Day melody, and then Natalie will lead the Giverot and the Kedusha and the melodies that we use each week at Shabbat so that you can pray with us. We will then read pages 52 to 66 silently, and you may be seated when you're finished. And I might add, please don't feel that you have to stand every time we need to stand. If you can't stand through the whole thing, just sit. We will not be judging anybody. So I ask you all to please rise as you're able. We're on page 42. Yeah, 42. Adonai Sefatai Tita Ufia Gisehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Omel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, Ezocher Chasei Avot V'Imachot, U'Mehi Geula L'Bnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Zochreinu L'Chaim, Melech HaPeis L'Chaim, V'choleinu Esed HaChaim, L'man HaElohim Chaim, Melech Odeh, Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezra Hatzalah. Atah Gibor Le'elam Adonai, Echayei HaKol V'Tara V'Hoshia, Morim Atah, Mechalel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayei HaKol V'Rachamim Rabim, Somer Noflim V'Ropei Cholim, U'Matir Hasurim, U'Mekayem Emunato, V'Shenei Afar, Michamocha Gevurot, U'Michal Melech, Melech U'Mekayem, U'Mashiach Yeshua, Michamocha El Harahamim, Zocher Ezura, Le'Chaim V'Rachamim, V'Le'man Hasalem Hayot Malchom, Baruch atah Adonai, Elohei Haol, Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Kodesh B'Chol Yom Yom Hashana. page 66.
Nearly 2 months ago, I had the privilege of attending New West Fest. It's not too far from here. As some of you may know, New West Fest is a yearly weekend-long music festival in Fort Collins that hosts local artists, anyone from the up-and-coming to legacy musicians. The event builds community in northern Colorado by bringing people together with a love of music and food and culture. Tens of thousands of people have attended this event. This year, the Saturday night headliner was Bonnie Raitt. Bonnie Raitt, the queen of country rock. I had never seen her live before. She sings some of my favorite hits. I should have been ecstatic. I should have been really happy. Instead, I felt a bit uncomfortable. I felt a bit anxious. I felt a bit scared. You see, all of the venues at New West Fest, they're outdoor stages. Each stage is fenced in such that both police forces and private security, they roam around the outer perimeter and they watch the attendees. They watch the attendees as if they're waiting for something to happen. My mind raced. A common trope for the 21st century public gathering. There's a phrase that we say in the Jewish tradition before we read Torah. It's Elu Devarim She'ein Lahem Shiur. It has roots in the Talmud, ancient rabbinic literature, but we say it often. And it means, liberally, the ways are limitless. It specifically refers to the list of commandments that we hold most dearly in our tradition. Commandments such as honoring your parents, engaging in acts of loving kindness, visiting the sick. celebrating with brides and grooms. These are the ways that are limitless. A different list, however, clouded my thoughts that night while I waited for Bonnie Raitt to take the stage. Elu divarim she'ein lahem shi'ur. In fact, these are the ways that are limitless, I think, this year. An outdoor concert in Las Vegas, nightclubs in Miami and Thousand Oaks, a garlic festival in Northern California, a downtown strip in Western Texas, malls, businesses, schools, and a synagogue in Pittsburgh nearly 1 year ago, our own home. What should have been a fun-filled evening instead filled me with worry. To be fearful in the midst of what should be fun is not a healthy or happy way to walk through life. And to make things worse, these aren't the only tragedies that are happening in our country. White nationalism and domestic terrorism and rising hatred of all kinds, they're always on the news. They're always happening. Nothing seems safe anymore. Something I've been thinking about that it's really challenging to bear the pain, and sometimes we don't know what to do about it. Especially in these high holy days, which engage us to think about these, to think about all these actions that have happened in the past year, and really deeply reflect on them. So I cannot help but ask, how did things get to be like this? Was this God's intention? To create this kind of humanity? I thought humans were supposed to be good. Rosh Hashana, the birthday of the world. That's what we celebrate today. The book of Genesis takes us through each of the 7 days of creation. I want to sort of review it with us. Day 1. We're told that God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and God saw the light, and he said it was good. God said it was good. Over the next few days, God created the sky and the oceans, and dry land, and trees, and the sun and the stars, and so many other creations. And God looked at all these creations, God saw them, and God said they were good. Everyone's with us right now? Then on day 6, God created humanity. God blessed humanity. Nothing else got a blessing. God blessed humanity. And then something profound happened. God saw the human, and the human wasn't just good. The human was very good. Now, I think it's a bit ironic. If the human was very good, we should certainly see it today. Humankind, at some point in history, was probably seen by someone as praiseworthy. The Psalms teach us, "Who is humanity whom you have considered? And you have made almost godlike and adorned humanity with glory and majesty." Although it's not to me to say whether humans were actually godlike back then, it's certainly difficult to see this today. Sometimes I doubt the direction humankind is heading. Our Talmud actually teaches us a tale about doubting humanity at the beginning of creation. The story goes something like this. A long time ago, just before God fashioned the first human being, let's imagine God was sitting in God's office, maybe sending some emails, maybe sending some calendar invitations. And God sent a calendar invite to consult with God's ministering angels. And this is what God said. Dear angels, typing on God's PC or Mac or Linux, whatever. God, dear angels, I'm interested in how I should create the first human. Please let me know your thoughts. Best, God. P.S. See you for Friday lunch. The angels convened, discussed, and crept up to God's office. God, are you available for a few minutes? So they hesitantly stepped into God's office. And they actually quoted that same psalm. Who is humanity whom you have considered? So basically, what they were saying was, well, I guess we were looking over the blueprints, and we're not really sure about this human creature that you're talking about. We think humanity might cheat or lie or steal. Whom is humanity? Who is this humanity whom you have considered? Not a moment later, God kicked those angels out of God's office. Another round of angels came. They doubted, and they left with that same fate as the first group. It was not until the third round of angels came, and they remained silent, that God sculpted the first human. Like the angels in the Talmud, there are times when sometimes I doubt the goodness in humanity. Bonnie Raitt actually sang on that evening, "Just give me one thing that I can hold on to. To believe in this living is just a hard way to go." It's a hard way to go for sure, but I think there are many things that we can hold on to. I'm the first to admit that we cannot change the world tomorrow. This is hard work, and I wish there were an answer. However, on this Rosh Hashana, I want to suggest 3 undertakings that I believe will help restore our faith in the goodness of humanity. Step by step, they are: read up, speak up, and show up. Read up. I get it. It's challenging to find the time sometimes. After long days, I'm often so tired that all I do is fall on my couch and I can only recount my day to my roommate, and that's it. But of the books that I read, many charge me to become more empathetic and compassionate in the way that I interact with others. This past year, for example, one book I read was entitled Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. And the book taught me the horrors of systemic racism in our country. And I think even more valuably, it taught me and spoke deeply to the importance of listening to one another's perspective. Reading books and articles about personal stories of hatred and oppression teach us about how dark forces impact people's lives at their core and how we can make a difference in making the world better. So this year, pick up a new book. Pick up a new book in order to be more caring and understanding of our fellow brothers and sisters. Read up. Let's read up. Speak up. Our Rosh Hashanah Torah reading teaches us the consequences of not speaking up. Tomorrow morning, we'll be reading from this segment of Torah. It's called the story of the Akedah, or the binding of Isaac. And in fact, it's a story of silence. Abraham, our protagonist, is a lonely knight of faith. Abraham is alone from the moment that God commands him to ascend this mountain. On the mountain, Isaac, his son, is supposed to be sacrificed by his father, Abraham. On this mountain, Isaac speaks only one sentence. Sarah, Abraham's wife, doesn't even join them on their journey, silent from the beginning. The infamous binding occurs, and Abraham nearly makes the sacrifice. The consequences of the story of silence, what are they? God and Abraham never speak again. Abraham and Isaac never speak again. Sarah passes away just sentences later. The consequences are dire. When we are silent, our world grows silent. So what happens when you do speak out? What's the opposite? On September 20th, an estimated 4 million people across 160 countries took to the streets in the largest climate change demonstration in history. At the helm of this global climate strike was a 16-year-old, Greta Thunberg. She entered the global spotlight over the last year as a leader of a youth movement that's pushing governments and corporations to address climate crisis. A few weeks ago, Thunberg gave this beautiful speech, impassioned and tearful as well. "This is all wrong," she says. I should not be standing here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to hope for me? How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. This anecdote's not about politics, and it's not about global warming. The anecdote's about your voice. Your voice is remarkable. Your voice has the power to make waves of change. This year, I encourage you to find an organization that maybe you're familiar with or you haven't been involved with in a while, and find this organization that helps mend our world from hate and pain and trauma or divisiveness, and become a volunteer or a partner or a donor. We have read up, speak up, and the last one is show up. This summer, community members at Temple Or Chadash gathered for multiple focus group sessions in order to discuss congregational achievements of the past and goals for the future. The focus group committee compiled and analyzed the data. I found the results to question 3 particularly compelling. Why did you choose to become a member of Temple Or Chadash? Remarkably, the answers that garnered the most responses, 83% of responses, answered with a sense of community. Sometimes we forget that simply gathering together can bless humanity with hope. Gathering together for prayer on a Friday night to remind us that Shabbat can bring us joy and music and spirituality in our lives. Gathering together on a Sunday chat can deepen our knowledge and understanding of the Jewish tradition. Gathering together for a pop-up Or Chadash dinner at a local restaurant or a warm home can help us learn the stories of both new and familiar faces alike. I believe gathering together has the power to make our world more collaborative and compassionate. And in fact, it starts right here. It starts from the very heart of our Or Chadash community. If we can already establish a space tonight to share joys and pains and memories and dreams with one another, then this year may we continue to show up and fill our Or Chadash community with even more hope and comfort and belongingness. 3 asks: read up, speak up, and show up. Now remember that the angels doubted God's creation of humanity. I think Elu Devarim She'en Lahem Shi'ur. I think the ways of proving the angels wrong, I think those ways are limitless. So this year, in 5780, may we read up, speak up, and show up, affirming the goodness in humanity, affirming the goodness of which humanity is capable, so that we may walk through this world alongside one another with feelings of comfort and bliss. Let's prove those angels wrong. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
On page 70, we'll sing together. Shalom, b'imromah, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru ha'amim. Oseh shalom b'imromah, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru ha'amim. Oseh shalom b'imromah, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al Shalom, Bimromav, Uyase Shalom, Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imenu, Amen. Now's the moment in our service where we think of those who maybe need a boost, who maybe are in need of healing of the mind, or the body, or the soul. If you are thinking of someone on this day who might need this boost, I invite you to share their name aloud or in your heart with this community as my eyes meet yours.
Mayor Ben Rachel, Esther Butler. Dr. Smith.
Green Wolf.
Judy Whitaker.
Will Christian.
Lisa Kay.
Mike Slutsky, Emmy Lewis Albert, and Mary Gray.
And Lenore Howard.
Phil Reister,
Jerry Stockman, Bob Stecker. Michael Donahue.
We take all of those names, both said and unsaid, as we turn to page 245 for the Misha Berach L'Cholim, our prayer for healing. I'd like to call up Rob Goldsmith for a reading.
For page 75, Avinu Malkeinu, a prayer for renewal. It's a responsive prayer. If you could please read the indented words, and I'll read the introductory words for each paragraph. We haven't forgotten Avinu Malkeinu.
Though we are from kings and disobey fathers,
And we have no great liking for absolute power. Akiva stood before you in a time of drought, and his words went up like a flame on the altar.
Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our ruler. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion for us.
He was humble and forgiving, so his prayer was answered. Tonight, we speak again in a time of drought, dry ground beneath us, no water, only rock.
Not hunger for bread or thirst for water, but hearts that are longing to hear God's voice.
For the sea of faith is all but gone. The tide's gone out on the empty beach. The world mocks our hopes in life, tests our courage.
Why do wicked move on and prosper? Why are you silent when they prey on the innocent?
And if your dominion is kindness and justice, why is creation in so much pain? Avinu Malkeinu, sustain our souls, send rain to our roots, help us find a way to pray.
Make us humble and forgiving, ourselves and one another.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew these words. Help us speak them with conviction and believe their truth. 100 generations have stood before the ark, and they lifted up their voices like flame on the altar, and they put their trust in kindness and justice, and they gave their strength to make the promise real.
Avinu Malkeinu, we haven't forgotten. Avinu Malkeinu, bring us back to you.
The bottom of page 77. Please rise. Avinu Malkeinu in Hebrew. I invite you to please follow with the English. Avinu Malkeinu, Eilanu Melech Ela Ata.
Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, you alone are our sovereign.
Avinu Malkeinu, Laman Karachem Aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, for your sake, show us mercy.
Avinu Malkeinu, Esei Imanu Lama'an Shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name.
Avinu Malkeinu, Sholach Rafaya Shlema Lecholei Amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, bring healing and wholeness still among us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Karat Ra'ah Gezar Denenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, allay the harshness of the decree against us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotbenu B'Sefer Ge'ula B'Shua.
Avinu Malkeinu, describe us in the book of redemption and renewal.
Avinu Malkeinu, Zochreinu B'Zicharos Ho Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, remember our goodness and call it to mind.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh L'Ma'ancha V'Hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake and save us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, make us ready to sin before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu Va'al Olaleinu V'Tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Deva V'Cherev V'Ra'av Me Aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, call the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tsar U'Mastin Me Aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotbenu B'Sefer Chayim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well built.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew us for your goodness.
started. And I'd like to call Carol. I'd like to call up Carol Free, please. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year. And wow, you know, I take a look around and it's so nice to see all of our members, and especially it's so wonderful to see so many visitors. And all of you visitors are welcome anytime here. So it's year 5,780, and boy, has time flown by. Yes. So Rosh Hashana means the head of the year, the beginning. Let's make this our best year ever. We've already started with this special Rosh Hashanah service. The first time ever we have had a trio of exceptional people leading the services. Natalie, who is studying to become a rabbi, Rabbi Lynn, and Rabbi Scott. Thank you both, all three of you rather, for starting off these high holiday services so beautifully. Now it is our turn to work on making this year special for us. We can only do that with your help. You received the copy of the survey results. Thank you to all of those who were able to participate. The focus group committee did analyze the results and harvested a wealth of information that you beautifully expressed concerning how you feel about Temple or Hadash, what you would like to see in the future, what our next rabbi should look like, and how we can grow. Actually, the conclusion that the committee came up with from your responses is, because of how you feel about Or Hadash, if we all work together, and only if we all work together, we can accomplish anything here. That was the inspiration for the creation of a vision statement for our temple. Our vision statement is our statement, our vision of our future. And I am launching it here now. Our vision statement is working together to continue providing a warm and welcoming environment so that our community gets its Jewish cultural, educational, spiritual, and social needs met. One more time. Working together to continue providing a warm and welcoming environment so that our community gets its Jewish cultural, educational, spiritual, and social needs met. We can only start moving toward that vision with your help. We can move the needle from where we are now. The vision statement says working together, and it means just that. The survey said you wanted to grow. You said you wanted a preschool and a larger religious school. You said you wanted more adult education. You said you wanted a rabbi that wants to be here. You said we are like a family. We are a Reformed congregation that knows each other, respects each other, and cares about each other. Because of the way we feel about each other, we have so much more strength to accomplish things than our size would indicate. Because of who we are, we can accomplish anything. It's not going to happen overnight. Sorry.
Just be realistic.
But I know we can get to where you want to go. Around this time of year, traditionally, many Jews give donations to their temple. That would be wonderful here. And very much appreciated since donations account for 40% of our revenues. Actually, we need more than that if we are going to progress. We need your assistance, your work, your sweat. Your board is beginning to create strategies and plans. They need all of you to participate. With you working alongside the board, we can have a larger religious school, we can have a preschool, we can grow, and we can generate the revenues for larger programs. We can have more adult education, but only when we step up and work together. Find a board member. Go up to that board member tonight, next week, 2 weeks from now, and say, I want to participate. I want to be part of our progress. What needs to be done? So, what will you do? How will you contribute so that we can become what you have said you want to become? Let's work together to make this year an exceptional one. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Please rise and hold on one minute. Turn to page 82 for the Aleni. Middle of page 84. We'll turn, please, to page 89. This is the time when we remember those of us who are no longer with us, that live along in our hearts. The light of life is a finite flame. Like our sacred candles, life is kindled. It burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our lives are full. That as night follows day, the candle of our life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more, and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives, we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and of life. I invite you to take a moment to think about those who are no longer in your life, those who helped make you who you are today. Just think about them for a few moments. And then together, on page 90, as one community, we will recite Kaddish together. Yizkadash, Yizkadash, Shemei Rabah, Ve'alam, Yivrach, Yuzeh, Yomrim Al-Huzeh, V'chayachol, V'rimechol, V'chayei Kol Beit Yisrael, V'adolav, V'zman Harmony, V'ru, Amen. Yahei Shrei Rabah, V'nirach, Le'olam, Omecho Maya, Yitzhak, Yishtabach, Yishbar, Yishtamah, Yishtaseh, Yitzhakar, Yitzhak, Yitzhak, Shvei, Yishab, Re'eproku. Ze'elah, Mikolam, Kata, Vishirasa, Yishakata, Nekamata, Damian, Yallah, Yimru, Amen. Yahweh, Shalom, Rabba, Yishmael, Yahweh, Aleinu, Ya'kol, Yisrael, Yimru, Amen. Oseh, Shalom, Yiramav, Yaseh, Shalom, Aleinu, Ya'kol, Yisrael, Ya'kol, Yosef, Yimru, Amen. And may the source of peace bring comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us all say, Amen. Please be seated. Two very quick things. There is a wonderful, I understand, oneg across the hall immediately following services, and we invite all of you to come and join us as we can grab a quick bite or two or three. Our services tomorrow will begin at 10 o'clock, and they will be held here at 10:40. Thank you. At 10:15 to 10:45 will be a children's service. At the conclusion of the service, we'll meet again for an oneg. After the oneg, we will go to the stream that's out in the back. I don't know where it is. Somewhere in here, and we will do that way. We will do a very short Tashlich service. And I want to just say that the important message of these High Holy Days, it is never too late to change. Never, ever too late. So therefore, we invite you to think, between tonight and tomorrow morning, one change, just one change that you want to make in your life. And make a promise to yourself that you're going to make that change starting right now, because the time is now.
We'll end where we began on page 6.